100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people,
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that
like a
the
man. I don't
creature
know what it
moved
was.
as being
Okay. You've
unnatural.
had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in
just
its own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was. So whatever it was that was standing out there. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better...
evil.
Sure.
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9".
Do you see
The
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who
he's
says
gone.
she
He's
has
big.
been
Faded out.
abducted since childhood.
Reality. I was just
what I remember
being brought up this tunnel of light, right
being
out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel light.
I
Just
ran between them
noticed
and
parts
ran
of
out
my
of
life
the
that
room
wouldn't
to my
even
mother's
occur to me to remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
in
never
my
told
body,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried
close
it
to death.
in the back
And so
of my
then I
mind.
came to the
Me
end
and
of
my
this
brother,
tunnel
we never
and noticed there
spoke
was
about
a man
it.
that first
I
started
noticed
speaking at first as
a
a place
mist
of
or a
and
fog
I
kind
saw
of moving. The action, the motion caught my eye. It actually started taking shape, taking form. The idea of the Grim Reaper went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me. And I really felt more that it was
Hey guys, and
demonic,
welcome to
or
Real
something
Supernatural
very evil.
Encounters. Today I'm going to be reading a few stories from my subreddit Supernatural Encounters. I wanted to make a few announcements before I get to those stories. I know it's been a couple of months or so since I've been able to upload any videos. I do apologize for that. I've had about 6 people that I've had scheduled throughout the times that I've had available that I wasn't working, and they have all canceled. Some people are comfortable in coming on, others aren't, especially when it leads up to the day that they're supposed to come on. So I apologize, on their behalf. But hopefully we can get and find more people to come on and tell their supernatural and paranormal stories. So with that being said, if you guys are ready, let's get to it. For our first story, this comes from Reddit user Agent11776. The story title is First Encounter. Hello all. I live in a small town in northeastern Pennsylvania that is surrounded by farms and endless forests. As a kid, I spent most of my time fishing for trout or building stick forts. Now I have bonfires and deer hunt. So as you can imagine, I'm outside most of the time. At this point, I know almost every paw print or call of the local animals, and I can identify it almost immediately. At the age of 13, I went over to one of my friend's houses for his birthday party, mid-June, alongside another 2 guys. We used to hang out a lot, but after this incident, things happened and we broke apart, and we went our own separate ways. Anyways, we were crazy and imagining exploring abandoned places and finding paranormal spirits, as all the YouTubers did at the time. About 3 miles into the forest, there was an abandoned quarry. All of us were excited to explore it. So we got the birthday boy, his name is Aiden, to lie to his dad and say we were going for a walk through the woods. Aiden's dad said yes, but to not wander off too far, and to pay attention to the trees due to the number of mountain lion sightings in the area recently. Many say they don't live here in Pennsylvania. Said to be a boogeyman of sorts, but I've seen one with my own eyes, and I could tell you they are here, along with wolves. We geared up and grabbed our phones and knives. Well, at the time I didn't have a knife, but I borrowed one from one of the bigger guys. His name was Clayton, and he is a little out of shape, putting it nicely. He usually brought up to 10 knives to our parties like some sort of serial killer. Sometimes he made me worried. He also gave one of our 4th guy, named Marcellus, more ghetto than country boy, but it's okay. We got along at the time. As we packed our bags and got ready, We poked fun at each other. Me insulting Aiden's choice of footwear, why he was wearing a pair of black and white Vans while the rest of us wore boots. Clayton poking fun at me for being the smallest guy in the group, and Marcellus backing up Clayton's insults. As we headed out the door, excited for what we were going to find, in this amazing abandoned quarry, imagining old mine shafts deep in the ground where coal was mined, copper, the air seemed to change as in heavier, like when a kid is in class, threatens to kill everyone in the room. Yeah, that kind of heavy. Almost a primitive fear. As I eerily look around, curious about what installed this primitive fear into my system, the others talked about what they were going to go find. I think we're going to find some coal. Maybe we can sell it to some local farmers, commented Clayton in an almost wishful sort of way. It's a quarry, you dumbass, not a mine shaft, yelled Aiden. Furious with Clayton's idiotic comment, Aiden had a tendency to get angry over the stupidest mistakes. Even a misspoken word was enough to set him off. Same thing, mine shaft, quarry, your mom's ass, all things worth exploring, Clayton said in a mocking tone. Shut the fuck up before I rock your world, you fat ass, Aiden yelled in rage, almost about to throw a fist and knock his teeth out. As Marcellus calmed both of them down, I zoned out. As we were walking into the woods, now after going through Antelope Field, the feeling of dread was getting stronger, and I almost wanted to run. I knew I'd been watched. I was being watched. I always know when someone stares at me in class. I usually look directly at them when I notice the feeling. I started to scan my surroundings. Maple trees, rocks, cliffs, bones, birds, beehives. Wait, bones? I backtracked to where I seen the bones and looked a little closer. About 60 yards away at the bottom of the cliff was a dead deer, fresh, blood still on its bones, flesh hanging from its skull. I imagined that the thing could have mutilated it so badly and thought of a 1,000-pound black bear with rabies. Honestly, now I wish it was just a bear. Hey, dipstick, I'm talking to you. Clayton pegged me with a rock and broke my trance. What? What do you want, man? I said, clearly annoyed. I said, what the hell are you looking at? Clayton barked, irritated that I didn't respond sooner. Nothing. Come on, let's get going. Still another 2.5 miles till we reach the quarry. Nothing exactly exciting happened as we climbed a large hill. I felt the air get heavier, and my primal fear clawing its way up my spine as if it's about to dig itself out. Once we reached the top of the hill, there was a level that led to a clearing, freshly mowed like a field. Aiden commented saying that was his property, and his neighbor probably was trespassing it. As we got to the fence, I noticed something red hanging from the fence. A rag or a piece of clothing covered in dried blood, and underneath it was a rusted old knife with a saw blade on one side and a sharp edge on the other. Me and Marcellus argued for a minute about who was going to get the knife, and I gave in and let him have it. We crawled under the fence and walked through the field. Right now, they were only about half a mile away from the quarry. I zoned out again as we walked. No one was talking about anything exciting anyway, and I scanned my surroundings when my fear jumped almost right out of me. I couldn't place it. As I frantically looked around, something evil was nearby, and I could sense it. I was at the back of the line, so no one noticed me panic. I went tree to tree, scanning for something out of place, and when I got to a birch tree roughly 25 yards away, I saw it. There was a large, lengthy, gray hand wrapped around this tree. I could almost make out claws. I looked up above the hand, and I could just barely see this edge of a head. I looked at my friends who got a little ahead of me, looked back at the tree, and the gray thing was gone. I ran to catch up with my friends, deciding to keep what I just saw quiet so I'm not made fun of for the rest of this weekend. We finally started to see a clearing up ahead. and another barbed wire fence. We walked through a patch of thorn bushes about as tall as me, and it shredded our bare torsos as we took off our shirts and hung them from our shoulders. We crouched under the fence and made it to the quarry. Now, almost 50 years later, it was just some old cow pasture. We were a little bummed out as we were hoping to find the ultimate mineshaft experience, but we knew logically what we would find. There was this cool little part where the rock was cut out, leaving a 10-foot drop below to the cow pasture. We went over there and screwed around on the cliff. It was roughly 100 yards away from the tree line, so we were a little far from the woods. There was a pallet with some perfect cut square rocks, and we looked through them, fascinated by how precise they were. But in the end, just left them. Aiden got the idea to take some Instagram pictures as we got into the position to take photos for our pages. Aiden. We all spun around towards the woods, hearing his dad, but it was off, almost mechanical. Startled by how quiet it was, almost a whisper. But the woods was 100 yards away. My fear crawled its way into me, and I wanted to go home knowing something was wrong. Guys, we need to go, I stated. Walking towards the tree line, the others followed. My fear grew stronger and stronger. I scanned the field, then the cliff, and then the trees. As I was walking, we were at the tree line, scrambling under the fence. Snap! A branch cracked, not too far from us. We all looked, Marcella still under the fence, and then we saw it. 20 yards away was a 9-foot, human-like animal. No, not animal. It stood on 2 legs like a human. Its gray, skinny arms ended at its knees, and its claws were as big as its hands. It was partially crouched, perching its elbows on its knees, staring at us with its hot red eyes. Teeth stuck out of its mouth like a piranha, with large canines like a dog. Its teeth were an ugly yellow and blackish color, with some blood stains on its top row. We all stood, frozen and staring at the beast. Then its eyes snapped to mine. It made eye contact and twitched. In fear, I let out a gasp. Its eyes perked up as it heard this, as if in pleasure. It slowly stood up, breaking my trance. I jumped in flight mode. Run! As I screamed, making a dash for home. The field only 50 yards away. The creature let out an almost metallic, human, bear-like roar. Its scream filled me with fear, and I could sense the hate in its veins. The monster was primal fear. We ran like hell as it chased after us, dodging left and right, changing direction, tripping it up so it can't catch us. We dove under the barbed wire fence and kept running. I looked back to see if it hurdled the fence like it was nothing, not on our heels running on all fours. I tripped over a branch and rolled, catching myself, and kept running. But this put me at the back of the line. I felt its hot breath on my back as it ran. It let out another scream and I jumped off the nearby cliff to my right. Our friends did the same. It was only a 15-foot drop onto some dead leaves and grass, so we landed somewhat nicely, except I rolled my ankle in the process and Aiden landed on his knee on a rock. I looked back and seen I almost landed on a deer corpse from earlier, and that gave me a spark of renewed energy. The tree line was only 300 yards away, and we ran like hell. We heard it screeching and scrambling down the hill at full speed. We vaulted over rocks and slid under fallen trees, and this thing was right on us the whole time, teeth bared and roaring in hatred. I knew the only goal this abomination had was to mutilate us like that deer. We ran and ran, then roared again, this time sounding almost in defeat. We cleared the tree line and ran into the road. We turned back around to see where it was, and it stood in the tree line, almost out of view, but still visible enough to see it. Evan, it croaked in a voice so unnatural and satanic, almost like demons in movies, but more metallic. I didn't mention this before, but my name is Evan. My friends always call each other mean things, so we rarely said our real names. Instead of primal fear, this time I felt primal rage. I puffed out my chest and slammed my hands on my pecs. You want a piece of me, you ugly son of a bitch? Come at me then. I screamed, a little unsettled by my primal outburst. This thing simply smiled, turned around, and walked away. We all looked at each other and went back to the house. Aiden's dad didn't hear the screams, so we had to explain nothing. We went and hid in his room in silence. None of us really talked about it much except for me. If I was to ask them now about it, they would probably say it was just a bear, and they would say we overreacted. But I'm telling you now, there was more to come to prove suspicions, at least to me. So what do you guys think about the story? It sounds a lot like a crawler, or another name for it as a rake. There was another story I've heard similar to this one, where one of these YouTubers wanted to go, investigate an Indian reservation. And they talked to a couple of Indian people that were, in that area. And they were telling him a story about this monster and how it came about. Well, he was so impressed by the story, he wanted to see if they would take him to the forest where this creature was. Well, these two Indian teenagers take him to the woods, to show him where this creature could be. And they said, whatever you do, do not run when we come in contact with this creature, if we do. Well, this young YouTuber ends up spotting it along with the two Indian teenagers. And he gets scared and he runs. He takes off running. He looks behind him to see that if the thing was chasing him or not. And he sees the two Indian teenagers also running right behind him. And they kept running and running, and they got out of the woods. As soon as they stepped out of the wood line, the guy didn't stop. The YouTuber didn't stop. He kept on going. And the Indians are walking up to him as he's close to his car now, way away from the tree line. And they're walking up to him, and he's like, why are you guys just walking? He says, the creature, cannot pass that wood line. It is protected by Indian medicine, old magic, they said. And when I heard that, I was just like, wow. So these creatures are literally bind into these certain woods. That makes sense when you think of like national parks and stuff. They never come out of the national parks. It's literally just that area where people are just going missing. Definitely a scary story. I enjoyed listening to it and reading it. So give me your guys' opinions. If you guys have any similar stories, please send them my way. I'd love to tell them or have you on to tell your stories. All right. So for the next story. This is from Reddit user No Replacement 7358. Story title, I saw a gnome, but I don't think I was supposed to see him. When I was still in elementary school, me and my family used to spend all summer at my great uncle's. And me and my family slept in the same room, except for my sister, who would sleep in the bed in the living room, and my great uncle, who would sleep in his own room. That was one pretty normal day. We went to the beach, we ate some pizza, and then at around 10 p.m., we all went to sleep. At around 4 p.m., I suddenly woke up because someone was throwing things around in the kitchen. Plastic cups, containers, food, etc. The door was open, so I was able to see the light coming from the kitchen. So when I had enough of all that noise, I got up from the bed. At first, something seemed off. I thought I was having some sort of strange dream, and as any rational kid would do, I tried to see if I could bend fire, like in the Avatar. Who wouldn't want to bend fire, right? Well, I couldn't, so I realized I wasn't dreaming. My father wasn't in his bed, but I didn't care much since maybe he was just in the bathroom. My great uncle was fairly old and had trouble sleeping at night, so I thought he was just in the kitchen to get some water. Uncle? Uncle? Are you all right? All this noise woke me up, I said while making my way to the kitchen. To my surprise, the room was empty, but the light was on, and the fridge was open, with a can of Coke laying right in front of it. What? I thought. I looked up to the shelf that was to my right, and I saw what was making that noise. Some sort of short creature around 30 centimeters tall, a gnome, you would say, was looking right at me, terrified. He was terrified because I saw him. I thought to myself, he's going to hurt me. Better if I fake a faint. And so I did. After a couple of seconds, I opened my eyes, and I saw that I wasn't on the kitchen floor anymore, but that I was in a strange, colorful tunnel. I got so scared again, I closed my eyes one more time. After a minute, I felt like eternity. I reopened them, and I was laying in my bed. There were still sounds coming from the kitchen, but I was scared and just wanted them to stop. And before sunrise, they did. That wasn't the only encounter I had with that dude, but I never saw it again. I'd only hear him because I was and am too scared to see him again. I don't know what he was doing exactly, but I'm sure I wasn't supposed to see him. I know it sounds crazy, but feel free to ask me anything about this. So what do you guys think about this? You know, there's always mythologies and stories about elves and gnomes. Like this coming this Christmas, the season's up for Christmas, and there's Santa, which is this old man, and he has little elves that, you know, help him make presents and all that. You know, to any normal little kid, if this was to happen during Christmas, they would think they were elves, you know? But let's talk about, he decided to fake a faint. So he didn't like actually faint. He was faking a faint. So he just fell over. When he opened his eyes, he said he was in a colorful tunnel. I've heard of little people, and they always try to get these kids to drink this drink or eat this food. And they say it would bring them to their place, you know, to where they are. In my head, I think that means like they will die and go into whatever realm they're at. You know, maybe it's something we can't even comprehend. But he said he was in a weird, colorful tunnel. What do you guys think that is? You know, this is definitely one of the coolest and weirdest stories I've ever read. Guys, give me your opinions and please comment on the story. All right. So for our next and last story, this is from Reddit user Hill Owl, and the story titled Barracks Monster. I was in basic training for the US Army, and I'll try to explain a few of the terms for people who have never been there. My friend was the person pulling fire guard, and that means that we get to sleep for 5 hours every night, but for one of those 5 hours, we have to get up, count the soldiers to make sure everyone is safe, and clean the floors and hope that the drill sergeants don't appear. So this was during OSUT in the Army. We were MPs, and during the AIT, job school portion, we were still had fire guard. It just wasn't every night like before. Since we had graduated basic training, we had 2-person shifts instead of 5-people shifts. So our building was divided in a north and south with 4 barrack rooms at each housed 30 soldiers. There were 3 stories. CQ, etc. was on the first floor. Females on the second and males on the third. The female stairwell was on the north side, and the male stairwell was on the south side. Each of the 4 barracks rooms also had 2 doors that led to the same long hallway. I was by the stairwell. My barracks were on the south side, and I was sleeping in a bunk right next to the wall of the male stairwell. Fire guard happened at a desk right outside the door for me. So this fire guard desk was right next to the locked male stairwell. And there was only a door between me, the fire guard desk, and the male stairwell. Females had already been seeing shadows walking around in the lit hallway. The lights never turned off. No way could this tall, slender shadow move around. One female, who was the most rational person I've ever known, not superstitious at all, saw it directly on the other side of the hallway, not in the corner of her eye. She said that it had a humped back and long arms that almost touched to the ground. So this has been going on regularly for all basic, and now a few weeks into AIT. when this craziness happens while my best friend is on fire guard with another female who are both major skeptics about the supposed ghost. She told me she heard the door moving back and forth. She and the other soldier looked at the door, paralyzed as it slowly moved back and forth like someone is trying to open it, but has no strength. They are getting ready for the drill sergeant to just burst in on them, so they are kind of tense, but not too worried. That never happens. Instead, the door slams outward. It opens on the male stairwell so hard it hits the wall with a huge bang. I hear it and startle awake and lay there because I hear someone yell, "Get the fuck out!" I thought it was a drill sergeant, but really, it was the other soldier. A little while later, in walks my best friend, crouching like she's clearing a room with her flashlight up and holding her M4 in a low ready. She's obviously very tense, and silly me sits up and asks, "Was that a drill?" She flips out and almost aims her M4 at me and realizes it's just me and says, "You scared the shit out of me, Smith. No, it's not a drill." She tells me the whole story the next day. Then, when we looked at the crack under the door, the lights were off. And as we kept looking, we were outside the door, so no way the sensors saw us. They turned on, and we flipped out, and I kicked the door to push it open, and we checked the whole latrine, but nothing. We did another count. Everyone was accounted for. It was so freaking scary. I still hold that it could have been a drill sergeant slamming the door open, but if there was someone on the other side of the door, no way it was able to hit the wall, and I heard it hitting the wall. Thing was, it was just the one floor. The male floor did not have the same single issue. Oh, and I almost forgot. There was a moment in basic, so before the door slammed open, that someone was laying on the floor. We weren't allowed on beds and had just gotten back from a 10-mile ruck with 80-pound rucks, and we're all so tired, and I was sleeping when I saw her get dragged on her back over a halfway down the little walking space between the rows of bunks. She screamed the whole way. Everyone else was stunned into silence. Our drill sergeants called her Private Jane, and that she was a private who killed herself about a year ago. Now, suicide attempts were a serious issue in basic, but the monster looked nothing like a human. They tried to tell us that she acted out most when trainees were doing the wrong thing. But to be honest, if that was the case, she should have been on the male floor because they were always messing up. Anyway, no one died, but a lot of people were freaked out, and all of the males thought we were lying. And at the end of the job school, we all said goodbye to the monster and went our own separate ways. We never forgot, and those of us who kept in touch still talk about it frequently. So what do you guys think about this story? Please leave your comments in the video below. I think it could have been shadow people, but honestly, it could be even more than that. It could be spirits. I always hear about when military go over to other countries like Israel, even Iraq, they have seen apparitions, different types of ghosts. I mean, so many amazing stories, giants, even somewhat monsters. It is something you're never prepared for when you're literally preparing for war with other people. So leave your guys' comments in the section below. I hope you guys have enjoyed these 3 stories. I definitely am happy to be back and have you guys listening to these stories. I hope to find some people to come on soon. But if I don't, I still have many stories I could read to you guys. Thank you guys for all you do. If you guys have a supernatural, paranormal, or cryptid story to tell, please get a hold of me. You can message me through my email, which is realsne_stories@yahoo.com. That's REALSNE_STORIES@yahoo.com. You can also message me on my subreddit, which is Supernatural Encounters, and that's encounters without the T in encounters. I'll spell that for you. It's r/SUPERNATURALENCOUNERS. You guys can message me on Facebook as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stories, and I'll see you guys later.